right, welcome everyone to Season 3 here on Heart of a Volunteer Veterans Podcast. I'm Chris, and I'll be your host for the foreseeable future. So hey, it's been an absolutely heartbreaking week. I've been taking steps to protect my own mental health, so it feels great to have Dr. Kopp back on the podcast to help us to see things a little clearer and get down the road. Katie, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back on. I wish the circumstances were different. So for people who don't know, we previously served together in the same infantry brigade. And this week we got rocked by news that one of our senior leaders took his own life. And we're not going to address his specific situation at all today, but it did remind both of us, that we need to stay vigilant to this issue, and that we want to reach out and remind people, suicide is a serious issue in general and for veterans especially. And so thankfully, Chris has this podcast and we can use it to talk to a lot of people all at once. And so that's what we're going to do today.
Yes. And Katie, you came on season 2. Did your SOG episode. Of course, we're always talking about veterans issues and stuff that's coming up on the podcast. It feels good to have you on here. You've always been, somebody that has great insight into the way soldiers and veterans tackle life. And it's great to have you on here. I think it's going to be beneficial, not only for me, because I benefit from every time we talk, especially when we talk about mental health. But it's going to help a lot of veterans out there too, some that we know and others that we've never even come in contact with. So I'd like to thank you for coming on. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much. So I thought we could start our conversation today, kind of getting a little more personal, but talking a little bit about when each of us, you and me, had to really consider the issue of soldier and veteran suicide. Can you tell me when it really hit home for you?
I think for me, there had been some suicides, before in my career, but it wasn't any, it never hit directly home, right? It never been like in my platoon. It never been in my company. It was just like in the unit and in the Army, but it was something that you could feel that was getting closer to home. Like it was happening in these, to these individuals that you didn't see it coming. And the same thing happened to us. We were in the Korengal and we lost a great soldier during combat operations, and another soldier just took that. He took it to heart, and it affected him. And of course, there were some other things that were going on in his life, and he felt like during the deployment with his guys, like in the area, that was. He had enough. He had reached his limit, and that affected the unit on deployment. But years and years later, right? Come to find out, he had some medical issues, and once again, this is like these compounding issues that the smile, the good works that they're doing out there, you never get a chance to dig deep because. They're doing what's expected of them, and it makes it super hard. But when that happened to us, I felt hopeless. I felt like there's absolutely nothing you can do when it happens and when it's done, and it's never easy, right? It's never easy. I went to college because one of my good friends, Ranger buddy, he committed suicide. And that idea that he could do that, and I always thought, it would be me that would do it before him, and it's just, that's the way my mind thinks, and much like this week, I never thought that something like that would happen, and it's the same thing, with the soldiers that I've had that you never saw it coming. But it's there. It's everybody is, and I think now, Katie, looking out across the formation, there's a lot of people that are probably thinking, "What about me?" You know what I'm saying? What about me? Where do I stand now? I thought I had a good, even with the soldier we had in the Korengal, you're thinking like this is solid. This guy's solid. His soldiers are in good hands, and then for that to happen, it's very it shakes you. It shakes the whole unit. It's tough.
I've definitely been hearing that a lot this week, and the people that I've talked to of just like, if it can happen to this person that everybody thought was like super solid, then like, is anybody safe kind of a thing, And obviously as a professional, mental health professional, I work with a lot of people at risk of self-harm, and that's a reality of my job that I have to live with. In the same way that, in your job, when you were a leader in the military, like you're prepared for some level of risk in terms of you might lose somebody. When you take a group of guys to the Korengal Valley, you're like, I might not be able to bring everybody home, and that's like the somewhat expected risk of the job that you have. So in the job that I have, we are kind of trained from the beginning to say, hey, there are clinicians who have lost patients to suicide, and there's clinicians who will. And that's a really sad reality of what I do. But we also spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to prevent that, So, the first time I was confronted with it was as an intern, working at Madigan Army Medical Center, and had evaluated a soldier for administrative separation as part of a standard evaluation. And, totally denied any risk issues, talked about what he was going to do when he got out. And then, of course, in between time, after I speak to him, things change in his life and there's developments. And then he's kind of all of a sudden in that place of being kind of backed into a corner, feeling no way out, and took some action to end his life. So that was the first time I was really directly confronted with it. And then had a lot of other experiences where, like you said, it's a little more on the periphery, of like this person in this other unit, or, this happened on this installation and this happened in another brigade. And then some that hit a little closer too. But, when it's someone that has a lot more visibility and, a lot of people know who this person is, and this person had a really positive influence on a lot of different people, then we have to really start to look at like, man, what was going on there, And I think that's one of the things, that word's already come up a couple of times that you and I've talked about is like this hopelessness, and what happens when somebody loses perspective on what are the options on the table for whatever it is they're dealing with, And I know you made reference to like compounding problems. Can you say a little bit more about that? Like what kind of things do you see that sneak up on people a little bit?
Well, no, I think it's, life itself and being in the service, you can have, some PTSD that's just kind of lingering there. And then things just kind of add up to it. And if you don't have any the coping skills to get through, the addition of your PTSD, and it keeps adding up and getting bigger and bigger, where you don't even have the ability. It's almost like, it's like going into your office and looking at your desk and being like, I don't even know where to start. Mm-hmm. And so it's almost like I'm just going to knock everything off the desk and just start fresh. And obviously you can't do that. You have to sift through it, but it's definitely that idea of just clearing the desk is always there. Let's just try to get all this off. And I think that's overwhelming. You know what I mean? It's overwhelming to have, when you look at your future, you don't see anything. Mm-hmm. And I imagine that people can get, because I've gotten there before. I won't deny it, where it seemed like there was nobody in your corner. Mm-hmm. You're still doing your thing. And, for me, it's like I will fight until the end, for my life. But it just seems like it's like you're like, I got nothing here. I'm rolling this thing alone, and it's a tough place to be. And I couldn't imagine doing that with a lot of stuff in my rucksack and not being able to get it out.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing is, I'm so glad that you never acted on those thoughts and that you're here with us. Because otherwise I'd have to be talking to somebody else about how heartbreaking it is that, Chris didn't talk to me. He's got my number. Why didn't he call me? And because that's the conversation a lot of people are having this week is like, man, like we were all ready to help, like we would have, had we known, like we would have, taken a road trip, flown out, shown up, whatever for this person. So, and so a lot of the compounding things I see happen too is like, so maybe somebody's feeling down, whether it's because of, trauma related stuff, whether it's just, kind of an average depression, that people go through, but like, and then other things can make that worse. So if we throw like substance abuse into the mix, we throw relationship problems, legal problems, financial stuff, we never really know what anybody's going through. If every time you talk to them, you're like, hey man, you good? Like, oh yeah, I'm good. Like, okay. Like kind of people will believe you if you say that, so if you're not, you gotta speak up about that, because when we add all those things together, that's when something really impulsive can happen, and of course a lot of veterans have access to lethal means, have firearms in their home for a number of good reasons, but then it can be a really terrible thing, when you're in that place where you're backed into a corner and it feels like there's no way out. Then, like I said, something really spontaneous and impulsive can happen, but then that leaves the rest of us with no response options because they've taken that final step.
Right. Yeah, I don't know, Katie. It's, I think we're at the point where we need to get some more compassion, right? Like this, just this compassionate view of people. And then at the same time, and, I've been saying this for years, stop buying into your own bullshit. Right. And it's like, if you're not having success with your mental health and you're trying to go it alone, you need to reach out to somebody, because this vacuum, right? Like trying to do things in a vacuum, it's literally like whatever you have in you and you walk into a room and close the door, that's all you have. Those are the only resources you have. There's no, if you're not a good sounding board for yourself, that's what's in the room with you. Bad decisions, right. Bad choices. And the thing is, we're always self-serving, right? We're always going to coddle ourselves to a degree. Even the people that are hard on themselves still coddle themselves to a degree. It's survival, right? But I think compassion, having empathy. Of course, we'll talk about that. You kind of know yourself, right? So you can pass that on to other people. Empathy for yourself, compassion for yourself, and be able to do that for others. But I just wish people would reach out and seek help.
Right. And that's, like I said, that's what, you see on all the like social media posts and stuff. It's like, if anybody needs to talk, like I am here, like hit me up on Facebook, like call me, text me, email me, whatever it's going to be. Like I see a lot of veterans willing to support one another. But again, if you're that person who feels like there's no way out, then that might be a hard step to take. So we've really got to get left of the boom. We got to be able to identify when things are starting to go wrong, when someone is like, man, I've been trying to manage this on my own and it does not seem to be working. And taking steps at that point, and then being comfortable seeking help, which is a whole other kind of battle, Right.
And, I've talked about this numerous times with people that our collective philosophy for this country, we're really not dealt with to deal with suicide. It's, we're bottle it up. We're suffering silence. We're hey, you go to war, you come back, and you get back on the tractor. You go back to the hardware store. You go back to you go and do whatever you were going to do before, and no one talked about it. And the thing is, I think we're still in that. We're still in that John Wayne mode, where we think that just because we went down range, just because we served, that there is this silence that we have to have. And the thing is, I think there's enough examples out there that if you talk to just about anybody, they're going to have a little bit of understanding of what you're going through. They're not going to be able, obviously a civilian's not going to be able to keep up with a conversation that you and I can have about deployment and loss and carrying those things with you. They're going to stand there and just look at us, but they're going to be taking it in. And I think we kind of lose that sight that there's great people all over, not just veterans, that have great hearts. Maybe they've had loss, right? And they definitely have the compassion, the empathy to help a veteran through that. I just don't think we don't give other people a chance to help us. Right.
Yeah, I find that balance because I encourage veterans to talk to other veterans, but then I also have to say, don't think that that's the only thing that can help. You can talk to family, you can talk to friends who've never served, you can talk to clinicians who've never served, and all those people can still be helpful to you. And it's important to have other veterans in your life. Right. So it's both. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that, like having people in your life, like when, kind of some examples or maybe even like milestones, right? Like I hate to say milestones, like your mental health is going down and you're hitting milestones, but these markers that we're hitting, these warning signs, what are we getting at down this track where we need to start reaching out to different people, doing different things in our life? Can you kind of paint a little bit of that for us?
Yeah, that's going to be a little tough because it's going to be so different for each person. But I think you got to look at like, what are your daily kind of obligations and responsibilities? And certainly if at any point, your symptoms are interfering with your ability to do those things. So like, I'm supposed to be at work right now and I can't get out of bed. I'm supposed to I promised my kids I would take them here and I don't have the energy for it. I can't handle being around those people, whatever the symptoms might be that are interfering with that. Then that's a pretty good sign that like, hey, you probably want to address that in some way or another. So if you're neglecting those personal responsibilities, if you're neglecting your personal self-care, even, some people like lose sense of their personal hygiene. If it's getting to that point, like you got to do something about that. If you're not, you previously were like a gym rat. Now you haven't worked out in a month. Like, okay, hey, what's going on there? This was always really important to you. You were always on your game there. Like, what's happening? Yeah. So those are some of the things that come to mind. Anything else that you can think of?
I think that, and I think of like, just like you said, like the withdrawal, right? Like for me, whenever I get into like withdrawal, like especially in the wintertime, right? I have like a really bad time when the leaves start to die and start falling off the trees. I just really don't enjoy life that much. You definitely got to start putting good things in front of yourself to pull yourself out of that. You can't just sit there and be like, well, in 3 months, this is going to be over. That's 3 months of wasted time. So trying to stay engaged with people. Like for me, I've got Ryan. He lives down in San Antonio. He has a crazy ability to like reach out to me when I need him to call me. He does, unprompted. It's kind of weird, but he got me through this winter just through conversations, and definitely having somebody there in your corner that you can depend on. That's gonna. I think the big thing is he doesn't, he calls me out on my bullshit, right? When I start to spread it on, he's like, whoa, man. And he just calls me and I'm like, oh shit, he got me. And I'm we joke about it a little bit, but it really is. I get off the phone with him and I'm like, man, I'm glad I got pulled out of that. And I'll text him, hey, thanks, man. I needed that. That was amazing. I just wish more people would just find that. Right. So
you've already identified like a pattern in yourself. You're like, okay, come, September, October, like I got to get ready for this. I need to I need to try to stay ahead of it and do things to prevent myself from just giving into that depression,
Right.
So if we bring our military mindset to it, like, okay, there's some hazards,
Yeah.
and so for other people, it might be, anniversaries. Like you said, it could be like weather stuff. It might be being around certain people. So kind of figuring out what are those hazards, and then what controls can we implement to make sure that those things don't trip us up,
Right. That's the hard thing, though, from a personal standpoint. It's like, you may start to see like these little things happening, like, like you're gaining just a little bit of weight, right? And you're not really actioning on that. If that's your thing, it just slowly starts to happen, and you're just kind of like, you're just kind of along for the ride.
Yeah.
And it's
and if you don't take action, then you're right. I don't know, you're like fat with depression. I don't
yeah. I got chunky. I got chunky during the winter, and I've got like a whole just like workout set right here, and I'm walking by it every day.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, we definitely can talk like literally about, got to monitor your weight, take care of yourself. But like, it's a good analogy, where if you're stepping on the scale, or, you're trying to put your pants on, you're like, things are slipping here. They're like, well, I'll do something about it later. I'll do something about it later. So if that's happening in terms of your mental health as well, you're like, I'm slipping a little bit here. I'm not doing this the way that I used to, but you don't take action until you're at a breaking point, then it's just a lot harder. It's a lot harder to lose 50 pounds than it is to lose 20 pounds. Yeah. So like, if you're 20 pounds depressed, I want you to do something about it before you get to 50 pounds depressed, because that's a lot harder to do. Yeah.
And the thing is, I think also when it comes to depression and kind of slipping into that loneliness, right? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, you find a little bit of comfort there. That's the bad thing, is that there's a little bit of comfort there with yourself. But once again, it's because we're self-serving. So we're going to soothe ourselves with like telling us that, hey, it's okay that you feel this bad. It's okay that you're not going to the grocery store and getting good quality foods. You're just eating just kind of whatever's around, not really putting effort into making it. It's okay that you're doing that. This is going to be okay. You've eaten MREs before. You've suffered. Right. It's okay. But it doesn't. It just makes it worse, because once again it compounds, and then you start to add other things in there, PTSD. Getting banged around, head, not quite right. Physical pains, like my back, my feet are killing me, my neck. You throw that stuff in there, and it's like this whole idea of doing things is not there.
Right. So you mentioned like you've got your friend in San Antonio who seems to have a sixth sense for, reaching out to you. What other connections do you think are important? What do people need to be on the lookout for in terms of taking care of themselves?
Katie, I think staying attached to the things that you love to do, activities, right? The start of my day, I get up. I'm up at between 5:30 and 6. I get a cup of coffee, and me and the dogs, we walk the property. We just walk. We look around. Of course, we're looking for moles and things like that, mole trails, and but we're just walking and kind of being around nature and getting that. Kind of get a nice rhythm going for the day. And then, of course, I start reaching out to people, start having conversations, and that kind of builds me up, right? It adds a lot of salt water to the lake, helps me float,
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of different ways to connect, So like you're talking about being connected with your environment and with nature, and that's good. You got the animals, like, of course, amazing therapy with those dogs. And then I think there's always different levels. So you want to have, like the closest friendships. And for a lot of guys, that might be like battle buddies and stuff. But then you also want to make sure that, you've got some local. So if you're not local to your battle buddies, you also still want to have people, in town, down the street, like whatever it's going to be that you can get together with on a pretty regular basis, make sure you're getting out of the house and stuff. Yeah. And then for some people, there might be like really important social media connections, they're like, oh, I'm in this Facebook group and I know I can always reach out there. swap stories over here, and that's always entertaining. Or, this meme group like gives me life because they keep me laughing, or, whatever it's going to be. So there's, IRL and then there's stuff online. And then maybe it's more like veterans groups, like whatever, sporting, they're like, hey, this group takes guys on hunts, or, this group trains people to run marathons, and, they really like to invest in veterans and treat them that way. Or maybe it's your local VFW, or like whatever it might be. But just finding ways to connect in all these different areas, I think will best serve you in the long run.
You know what, Katie, you just said that about, veterans in your local area. Right across the street from me here at the lake house, there's a property that is an Airbnb. And the guy that owns it, his father is an Army veteran. Mm-hmm. And I met him before I met his son, and then went and ate with him this past weekend, had dinner with him last night, which I really needed, right? I really needed to have a good veteran around me. And at the end of our meal, he stands up and he goes, I'm heading back to Missouri in a couple of days, get my stuff cleaned up and packed up, and I'm moving down here. I'll be back. I can't wait to see you again, Chris. And when he said that, I'm like, man, I'm getting the feeling that he needs me. That this is somehow it's very, very good for him. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I'm like, I feel good when we're talking, and right. and just talking about his time in Germany during Vietnam. He asked questions about deployments. Of course, we talk about the podcast and other veterans. So you're absolutely right about they don't have to serve with you. It's the spirit of it, right? Mm-hmm. It's the whole spirit. Yeah. It's the spirit of it, and it's just it's crazy how it happens. Mm-hmm. But we gravitate towards each other, and it's one of those things where it's like I know people aren't going to like soothing, right? But we soothe each other, right? It's like this thing in your life where it's like all of a sudden you're like, this is something that's known. This is known to me. I'm very comfortable here. This feels pretty cool.
Familiar, There's comfort in that.
And the thing is, I now that you say that, I see that. Not only is it good for me, a veteran, staying in contact with other veterans, maybe that they haven't even served with, like you said in the VFW, that's adds life value to those veterans too.
I talk to people, basically every day as part of my work about finding meaning and purpose, because that's one of the hard things about transitioning out of the military, is what's going to drive you, what's going to give you meaning, and whether that means, hey, I work this job that I have to work because it pays the bills, but on the weekends, I'm going to do this other thing that I find really gratifying, because we can't all, I get a lot of meaning from my work, but that's not the case for everybody. So it doesn't have to be your occupation, but you got to find something you can invest in that you get returns on your investment.
Yeah, definitely. Katie, hey, let's take a quick break and let's come back and let's talk about normalizing trauma. Talk about, working with ourselves and kind of building compassion and empathy so we can be there for other folks. Let's take a quick break and let's come back and talk about that.
Okay.
Hey, I know what you're doing over there, talking to your coworkers about work. Boring. The weather? Even worse. All along, avoiding the real topic you want to talk about. You're practically bursting at the seams to talk about every episode of Heart of Volunteer Veterans Podcast. All amazing veterans, every episode, veteran gold. Yeah, go have that chat. Enjoy the rest of the episode. All right, Katie, so I love that mid-reel. That was a lot of fun to make. We were talking about, how do veterans get out of the stigma of dealing with mental health. We talked about trauma that we go through. It's, normalizing it to where we're talking to people about it. It's not something that bothers us to talk about. I don't have a problem talking about the hard times during deployment. the hard lessons I learned as a leader, the hard life lessons that I'm still carrying with me today. It's to understand those things. Once again, can't do it for myself, right? I'm just don't. As smart as I think I am, I don't have those skills. But talking to other people, it helps me to understand myself more. And if I didn't allow that to happen, right, to make this conversation about mental health, about struggles, normal conversation, like, hey man, how's the weather your way? It needs to be, hey man, how's your mental health going? Man, I've been struggling a little bit, but I think I'm back on it. We got a new horse in a couple of weeks ago. I've been really dealing with that. All these things that start to come up, but you get a chance to check in, and it's not this useless bar talk, right? Mm-hmm. These conversations that just end. They've got no, when we separate from each other and we go somewhere else, I'm thinking about this still. This is profound. Mm-hmm. By normalizing the trauma, I think that we can have these truthful conversations with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's good to figure out, who are the people that you want to be real with, who are the people you want to be vulnerable with. Cause there might be people who are like, how's your day going? And you really just want to say, I'm good, right. But hopefully there's people when they ask you that, you can be like, whew, like, I got to talk to you about this. Cause it's been a struggle. Cause we can all tell war stories, a lot of them, in ways that we make it funny. Like you can tell even about something terrible that happened. Like you can talk about that, at a party or something in a way that's going to be entertaining for people. But there's also a way to talk about that where, you get real about the emotions involved and how hard it was, or, usually when I think about this, I get real sad for a few minutes, and so again, you don't have to do that all the time, but you have to do it sometimes. Like you have to be able to acknowledge, like, there are things that happen that are not easy to talk about and are, make me, like I said, bum me out when I think about it, or I still feel real guilty when I think about this one decision that I made, or, we lost this guy and I was supposed to be in that seat, and that's what I live with every day,
No, I think you're absolutely right. We got to, you have to find that one or two good sounding boards, right? And it's, here's the thing, Katie, that right there in itself, that is a struggle. And I totally emphasize with everybody that's like, I got no one to talk to. You're opening up yourself, where you're typically only talking to yourself, and you're sharing this with somebody, and you don't know, right? You don't know if this person's solid, if they've got your best interest at heart. But the thing is, I think that everybody has enough good people that they serve with, that they've got a good start point. Even if you're like, hey, we didn't get along that well, but I really need somebody, and you seem like a really smart person back in the day. Man, will you just be my battle buddy out here, man, and just kind of help me? I
would like to think it is very rare that somebody would not step up to that call. Like the power of kind of the unit cohesion overrides those personal differences,
right?
Like literally anybody who called me like in the last 2 days, like even if like we're not on great terms, like I don't care. Like if you need to talk to somebody because like this has been a really hard week, like I'm going to answer your call, Yeah.
No, I have this policy for myself. If a veteran reaches out, I dedicate as much time as they need. And even when it comes to, here at the lake house, if I figure out that a veteran just needs to get away, I'm like, hey man, you need to get here. Come here for a weekend, bring your wife and your kids down. There's plenty of room. I'll sneak off. You can have the place. Just to try to put something good in front of them, right? So they can maybe clear a little bit off their plate, and maybe they're sitting here at the bar, just kind of enjoying the lights and the birds and everything else in the evening, and having that weight off of off of that veteran, he or she, they get a chance to maybe open up a little bit more, talk about what's going on, with their spouse, or maybe they brought some friends with them, or maybe it's just a group of us talking.
Sure.
I definitely think we need to figure out a way to talk about this more of an open dialogue. I'm convinced, Katie, that you can't show true compassion and empathy towards people if you don't have it for yourself. You've got to be able to, to talk to yourself in good faith, not bad faith. Things to be true, you speak them. If they're false, you call them out. And you build compassion for yourself. You tell yourself, it's like, you have gone through a lot of hard stuff. You're still a good person, right?
Right.
And once you've done that, and you've kind of learned to take it easy on yourself, showing yourself empathy, then you can do that for other people, because you can identify yourself out there. And I think we need to get into that realm of removing the stigma.
Right. And so I think that's where, we talk about the difference, like between like operator level maintenance, right? And when you got to like find the mechanic because things are real jacked up.
Yeah.
And so it's good to figure out what are the resources that you have, like I said, at the operator level. Like, what are your basic day-to-day, like coping skills, stress management techniques, self-care activities, probably all the stuff that has been kind of preached at you and maybe you blew it off, or like, oh, whatever, it's not that helpful. But so if, you got to try those things first. And then if that's not working, if like, man, we're really need some more maintenance here, then it's good to figure out what are the other resources available, So I want to make sure everybody has, the crisis help number, 1-800-273-TALK. For veterans, press the number 1, and you got somebody to talk to, immediately, and they may want you to follow up with some other resources, or you may just say, hey, I just need somebody right now in the next 20 minutes, because those crisis feelings, that hopelessness, for a lot of times it kind of comes in waves, and that's why like I worry about the impulsive stuff, because I'm like, man, if you take this action when this wave is crashing on you, like if you could make it through another day, you would know that tide's going out, like you're not always going to feel underwater like that. So the crisis line is a great resource for that. They're available immediately. Hopefully you've got a list of contacts in your phone, kind of like break glass in case of emergency. Like, these are the people I know I can call day or night. They will answer the call. They will call me back as soon as they can, like that kind of thing. And I know you and I both, like being a resource for veterans as well. I'm happy to help people figure out if they do need professional help, like what's in your area, what's available to you. Do you have insurance? Do you want to go through the VA? Are you still active duty? Like, what do we need to do to figure out like how to get you there? And I can hopefully help you navigate those resources. So I know my name will probably be in the show notes, but it's Katie Kopp, Kopp. Just my email is katiekopp@gmail.com. Like, if you need something, like hit me up, and I will try to point you in that right direction.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you. Hey, and for people that don't know, like Katie said, we served together at Fort Carson. Amazing unit. Some tough times with great people, and Katie was across the battlefield. You got to listen to her SOG episode. Just all over the battlefield, helping veterans, and then after deployment, and even now, you're not going to find anybody that's more vested in veterans than Katie, and you're definitely you're a mainstay in my life, and I appreciate that. Well,
thank you. And what you're doing here is amazing too, So if people want to talk to you, if they want to come on the pod, co-host, what do you want them to do?
No, they just have to reach out. And, the thing is, like this time of year, right? Coming out of Memorial Day, getting into the summer, this is kind of like the fighting season, right? This is where we take our losses. This is also a time for people to get out there and do things. But for those that don't, like you said, they can, if they want to come on the podcast, they just have to reach out. I think it's pretty easy, right? It's not.
Yeah.
It's not very hard. We kind of chat a little bit, kind of figure out what we're going to talk about, and then we just kind of go with it. And I think it's a good resource for veterans. We just need to get more veterans involved with it to really help it kind of pick up pace, right? And be able to help.
Yeah. And like you just said, like this can be a tough time of year because this is the fighting season overseas. There's a lot of anniversaries, a lot of tough stuff that people might be thinking about this summer. And so, we don't want another bad outcome. Like we lost too many people downrange. We don't want to lose them here. So whatever it takes, call, text, email, whatever you got to do. But please reach out.
Yeah, do whatever it takes, folks. Believe me, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of veterans that are just waiting for you to call, reach out. Facebook groups, there's all kinds of stuff. Don't slip through the cracks just because you think that you can't be helped. You're not worthy of being helped. I've heard that a lot. You are. Everybody is. Everyone deserves to be in the sun, enjoy life, and die old. They do.
Yeah.
So, man, do you have anything else, Katie? What are you going to do?
I don't know.
Now that let me ask you this here. Now that the vaccines and everything's kind of opening up, do you and your family, you have plans for this summer? You going to take a vacation somewhere?
I think we might try to go to the East Coast. We have a few different friends who've kind of ended up in the DC area. So I think we might hit that up for a week. Otherwise, my summer is mostly filled with taking my kids to different activities and practices and sit on the side of a soccer field, sweating my ass off in the Iowa humidity. Right.
I think I did Belize like 2 weeks ago. I think I'm heading to Cancun next month, but I think I am gonna be up in the Virginia area. I'm gonna go visit my cousin maybe for a few days, and then I'm gonna try to get some walking in down in Belize. Try to walk the Mayan Trail. Just kind of hang out. Maybe look for some land to buy. Start building like a little vacation compound.
Yeah, good plans, man. I like it.
Well, I told you I don't like the winters, and it's always green. It's always green down there. So
putting your controls in place, I like it.
Oh yeah, you gotta take care of yourself. No one else is going to do it for you. Well, Katie.
All right, it was great talking to you, man.
Yeah, once again, thank you very much, and stay blessed out there. Copyright Heart of a Volunteer 2021.